Captain Jake Morrison stared at the massive alien ship floating in space before them.
Ow.
The vessel was 3 times larger than his exploration ship, the UES Horizon.
Ow.
Its hull gleamed like silver metal under the distant starlight. Strange blue lights pulsed along its surface in patterns he had never seen before. "Captain, they're sending us a signal," said Lieutenant Karen Webb from her communication station. Her voice was steady, but Jake could hear the excitement underneath. This was humanity's first contact with alien life, and everyone on the bridge knew they were making history. Jake straightened his uniform and walked to the center of the bridge. "Put it on screen, Lieutenant." The main display flickered, then showed the interior of the alien ship. Jake tried not to show his surprise at what he saw. The being facing him looked nothing like the aliens from old Earth movies. It was tall and thin, with pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer. Its head was larger than a human's, with 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern. It had no visible mouth. But when it spoke, the words came through their translation system clearly. "Greetings. Primitive vessel," the alien said. Its voice was soft and musical, almost like singing. "I am Ambassador Vexter of the Kelthani race, representing the Galactic Coalition. You have entered regulated space without proper authorization." Jake stepped forward. "I'm Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earth ship Horizon. We come in peace, seeking contact with other intelligent life." The alien tilted its head in what might have been curiosity. "Earth. We have no record of this world in our databases. Your technology appears to be in the early stages of development. Chemical rockets and primitive fusion drives, I assume?" "We use fusion drives." "Yes," Jake replied carefully. He didn't like the way the alien called their technology primitive, but he kept his voice calm. "We're explorers, not warriors." Ambassador Vextar made a sound that the translation system couldn't convert. "All species say this when first encountered. Do not worry, small beings. The Coalition has dealt with developing races for thousands of your years. It will guide you properly into galactic civilization." Behind the ambassador, Jake could see other aliens moving around what looked like their bridge. They all moved slowly and gracefully, like they were floating through water. None of them seemed to be in any hurry about anything. "Appreciate it. Your offer," Jake said, "but humanity prefers to make its own decisions about its future." The ambassador's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "I see you do not understand. This is not an offer. This is standard procedure. All Category 3 species must accept Coalition protection and guidance. It is for your own safety and the safety of others." "Category 3, asked Dr. Lisa Chang, stepping up beside Jake. She was the ship's xenobiologist, and Jake could see her scientific mind working hard to understand these new beings. "Yes," learned female Vexter said, somehow knowing Lisa was a scientist. "We classify all species based on their development level. Category 1 species are full Coalition members. Category 2 species are developing toward membership. Category 3 species like yourselves require supervision until they prove they can be trusted with advanced technology." Lisa studied the alien carefully. "What determines these categories? What tests do we need to pass?" "Many factors," Vexter replied. "Technological advancement, social stability, and most importantly, peaceful nature. The galaxy has been at peace for over 3,000 years. It cannot allow primitive, aggressive tendencies to disturb this. Harmony." Jake felt his jaw tighten. The alien was talking about humanity like they were children who couldn't be trusted with dangerous toys. And if we refuse this protection... The ambassador's expression didn't change, but something in his tone became colder. "That would be most unwise. The galaxy can be dangerous for unprepared species. There are hostile forces that would destroy primitive civilizations without hesitation." "What kind of hostile forces?" Dr. Chang asked. "The Zephyrian Empire for..." "One," Vexter said. "They broke away from the Coalition 50 years ago and have been expanding aggressively ever since. They show no mercy to weaker species. This is why Coalition protection is not optional." Jake exchanged glances with his crew. Lieutenant Webb was recording everything, her fingers dancing over her console. Commander Steve Parker, his second-in-command, stood ready at the tactical station, though Jake hoped they wouldn't need weapons. "We need time to discuss this with our government," Jake said finally. "Of course," Vextar agreed. We will escort your vessel back to your home system. Our experts will need to conduct a full evaluation of your species and your military capabilities. That's not necessary, Jake said quickly. We can find our own way home. The alien made that untranslatable sound again. Captain Morrison, your species has barely mastered interstellar travel. Your weapons are crude kinetic projectiles and nuclear devices. Your ships have no energy shields or plasma weapons. Without escort, you would be helpless against any real threat. Dr. Chang stepped closer to the screen. Ambassador, may I ask? About your own species evolution? What kind of world did the Kelthani come from? Vexstar seemed pleased by the question. He evolved on a peaceful garden world. My ancestors were gatherers, living in harmony with nature. We developed intelligence through cooperation and patience, not through conflict. Interesting, Lisa said, though Jake could see her taking notes on her tablet in the other coalition. Species? Similar paths, Vexstar replied. The 380 were filter feeders in vast oceans. The Quillen were herd animals on grassland worlds. The Zentari developed from tree-dwelling fruit eaters. All peaceful species who learned that cooperation brings greater success than competition. Jake noticed something in the alien's voice when he talked about his species' history. Pride, but also something else. Something that sounded almost like they were trying to convince themselves as much as the humans. What about predators? Dr. Chang asked, surely some intelligent species evolved from hunters? The ambassador's four eyes all focused on her at once. Predators do not develop true intelligence. Dr. Chang, they are too focused on immediate needs, too aggressive for long-term thinking. Intelligence comes from cooperation, not from hunting and killing. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Thought about Earth's history, about how humans had hunted mammoths across ice ages, how they had developed tools and strategies to bring down animals 10 times their size. He thought about military history, about how human armies had learned to work together through thousands of years of warfare. I see, Dr. Chang said carefully. And you've never encountered any species that develop differently? Never, Vexstar said firmly. It is impossible. Tory behavior and true intelligence cannot coexist. This is why we know your species will integrate well into galactic civilization once properly guided. The conversation continued for another hour, with Vexstar explaining coalition policies and procedures. Jake learned that humanity would be given a protection zone around Earth, but no human ship would be allowed to travel beyond it without coalition escort. Human technology would be slowly upgraded under careful supervision. Human military forces would be disbanded as unnecessary. When the communication ended, Jake turned to his crew. The bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of the ship's engines. Well, he asked. Commander Parker spoke first. They're treating us like children, Captain. Like we can't be trusted to take care of ourselves. Did you notice how they moved? Lieutenant Webb asked. So slow and careful, like they're afraid of breaking something. Dr. Chang was still studying her notes. Captain, I need to run some analysis on what we learned today. But I have concerns about their assumptions regarding human evolution. Jake nodded. We're heading home. Earth's command needs to hear about this immediately. As the horizon turned toward Earth, Jake watched the alien ship grow smaller in the distance. Something about this first contact felt wrong. The coalition seemed helpful on the surface, but there was something underneath their polite words that bothered him. He thought about what the ambassador had said about predators and intelligence, about how all galactic species had evolved from peaceful creatures, about how they had never encountered hunters who learned to think and plan. Jake had a feeling that was about to change. 6 months had passed since Captain Morrison returned to Earth with news of the Galactic Coalition. President Helen Carter had rejected their protection offer, declaring that humanity would defend itself. The coalition had not been pleased with this decision, but they had withdrawn to observe from a distance. Now Earth faced a different problem entirely. Admiral Rex, Valdris of the Zephyrian Empire, studied the tactical display aboard his flagship. The Sovereign Death. The human colony of New Austin appeared on his screens as a small blue dot, surrounded by defensive satellites. Intelligence reports said 50,000 humans lived on the planet's surface, mostly farmers and miners. Such a pathetic defense, said Commander the Kalan, his second in command. Like all Zephyrians, the Kalan had gray skin and large black eyes adapted for their dim homeworld. A few orbital platforms and some patrol ships, they will surrender. Within hours, Admiral Valdris nodded. The Zephyrians had been expanding their empire for decades, absorbing weaker species into their ranks. Humans appeared to be no different from the others. Their technology was primitive, their ships small and poorly armed. This would be an easy conquest. Begin the attack, Valdris ordered. Standard procedure. Destroy their orbital defenses, then demand surrender. If they refuse, we will bombard one city to show them our power. The Zephyrian fleet moved forward. 50 warships, each one larger and more advanced than anything humanity had built. Their plasma cannons could melt through ship hulls like paper. Their energy shields could stop any primitive kinetic weapon the humans might fire. What? Meryl Valdris did not expect was what happened next. On the surface of New Austin, Marine Colonel Danny Torres watched the alien ships approach through his binoculars. He was a short, stocky man with graying hair and scars on his hands from 20 years of military service. Around him, his Marines prepared for battle. Colonel, we've got incoming plasma fire, reported Sergeant Kim Walsh from her position near the communications array. They're targeting our orbital platforms. Danny watched as brilliant blue beams struck the human satellites. One by one, the platforms exploded in silent flashes of light. But instead of feeling defeated, Danny smiled grimly. That's what we wanted them to do, he said into his radio. All units begin Phase 1. What the Zephyrians didn't know was that the orbital platforms were mostly empty shells, designed to look like real weapons to draw enemy fire. The real defenses were hidden elsewhere. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Blake sat in a converted mining station, buried deep in an asteroid field near the planet. Around her, 50 technicians worked at control panels that had been built from spare parts and salvaged equipment. Her command center looked nothing like a military facility, but it was about to prove very dangerous. Sarah to Danny, she said into her headset. They took the bait. All fake platforms destroyed. They're moving into position for planetary bombardment. Perfect, Danny replied. Light them up. Sarah's finger hovered over a red button, activating mining charges. Across the asteroid field, hundreds of mining explosives detonated simultaneously. But these weren't random explosions. Each charge had been carefully placed to launch chunks of rock and metal toward the Zephyrian fleet at high speed. Admiral Valdris watched in confusion as his sensors detected thousands of objects flying toward his ships. What is this? Missiles? Sir, his sensor officer replied, his voice puzzled. They appear to be rocks, asteroids, and debris. Rocks? Valdris laughed. Their weapons are so primitive they throw stones at us. Our shields will stop anything so crude. The first asteroid chunk struck the Zephyrian shields and bounced off harmlessly. Valdris was about to order his fleet to ignore the debris when something unexpected happened. The rocks began to explode. Sarah had done more than just launch asteroids. Each rock had been fitted with a small fusion warhead, turning them into massive bombs. When they struck the energy shields, the warheads detonated, overloading the shield generators with more energy than they were designed to handle. Shield failure on decks 7 through 12, reported a Zephyrian officer, panic creeping into his voice. Multiple hull breaches. We're losing atmosphere. Valdris stared at his tactical display in disbelief. 3 of his ships were already crippled, and more asteroids were still incoming. How is this possible? They turned mining equipment into weapons. On the planet's surface, Colonel Torres was just getting started. As the Zephyrian ship struggled with the asteroid attack, he activated the second phase of his defense plan. Civilian shelters? This is Torres. Begin harassment protocol. Across New Austin, ordinary colonists emerged from underground bunkers carrying hunting rifles, farming tools, and homemade explosives. The Zephyrians had expected the human military to fight, but they had not expected every human civilian to become a warrior. Mary Johnson was a school teacher who had lived on New Austin for 8 years. When the alien ships appeared, she gathered her students in the school's basement shelter. But instead of waiting helplessly, She handed out modified farming drones to the older children. "Remember what we practiced?" she told them calmly. "Drones can carry small charges. Aim for their landing craft engines." Across the colony, similar scenes played out. Farmer Bill Santos used his crop-dusting aircraft to drop homemade napalm on Zephyrian ground forces. Dr. Linda Fox, the colony's only doctor, had spent weeks preparing chemical weapons for medical supplies. The Zephyrians had never encountered anything like this. In their experience, civilian populations surrendered immediately when faced with superior military force. The idea that teachers and farmers would fight back was completely alien to them. "Sir, our ground forces are requesting immediate extraction," reported Commander the Kalan. "They say the entire human population has gone insane. Civilians are attacking our troops with improvised weapons." Admiral Valdris couldn't understand what he was hearing. Civilians. Why are non-combatants fighting? Where are their leaders to order them to stop? What Valdris didn't realize was that humans didn't need orders to fight. Every colonist on New Austin understood that their survival depended on resisting the invasion. They fought not because someone commanded them to, but because it was their nature to fight when threatened. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Blake watched the battle unfold from her hidden command center. The Zephyrian fleet was in chaos, half their ships damaged by her asteroid attack, but she wasn't finished yet. "Engineering team, report status on Project Ramrod," she called out. Engineer Ben Rodriguez looked up from his workstation. "We've got 3 cargo ships ready, Sarah. Engines removed, navigation systems replaced with simple guidance computers. They're basically flying bombs now." Sarah nodded. The plan was insane by any normal military standard. They were going to crash unmanned cargo ships directly into the enemy fleet. No shields, no weapons, just mass and velocity. It was suicide for the ships, but it might work. "Launch them," she ordered. 3 converted cargo vessels accelerated toward the Zephyrian fleet. Admiral Valdris watched them approach with confusion. "Are they trying to ram us?" he asked. "Surely they don't intend to sacrifice their ships in such a pointless gesture." "Sir, those ships have no crew aboard," his sensor officer reported. "They're on autopilot." Valdris couldn't believe what he was hearing. Unmanned suicide attacks? What kind of species is this? The first cargo ship struck a Zephyrian cruiser amidships. The explosion tore both vessels apart. The second ship punched through the shields of the flagship's escort, cracking its hull like an egg. The third ship missed its target, but detonated close enough to disable 2 smaller vessels in less than 2 hours. The Zephyrian fleet had gone from complete confidence to barely controlled panic. Half their ships were damaged or destroyed. Ground forces were being harassed by an entire population that refused to surrender. Their admiral was beginning to understand that humans were unlike any species he had ever encountered. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the human colony," reported the communications officer. "Put it through," Valdris said. Colonel Torres appeared on the screen, his uniform torn and dirty from fighting. Behind him, smoke rose from burning Zephyrian equipment. "This is Colonel Torres of the New Austin Defense Force," he said calmly. "I'm calling to offer you terms for surrender." Admiral Valdris blinked in surprise. "You're offering us terms? We're the ones with the superior fleet?" Danny smiled, and there was something in that smile that made Valdris uncomfortable. It was the smile of a predator who had cornered his prey. "Admiral, you've lost 6 ships and most of your ground forces in 2 hours. My people are just getting warmed up. I suggest you withdraw while you still can." The transmission ended, leaving Valdris staring at a blank screen. Around him, his crew worked frantically to repair damaged systems and treat wounded soldiers. For the first time in his military career, Admiral Valdris was beginning to understand fear. The news of Admiral Valdris's defeat at New Austin spread across human space within days. What had started as a desperate colonial defense became something much larger. Earth's military leaders realized they were no longer fighting for survival, but for the future of their species. General Patricia Wells stood in the war room deep beneath the Pentagon, studying holographic displays of enemy ship movements. Around her, dozens of officers worked at control stations, coordinating humanity's response to the Zephyrian threat. "General, we have confirmation," reported Colonel Janet Price, her intelligence chief. The Zephyrians are pulling back from 3 more systems. Their forces are regrouping near the Arcturus sector. Patricia nodded grimly. The enemy was learning to be more careful, but that only meant humans had to be more creative. She turned to the engineering team working at a nearby table. Ben, what's the status on those captured ships? Engineer Ben Rodriguez looked up from his work. 3 weeks ago, he had been fixing mining equipment on New Austin. Now he was reverse engineering alien technology that had taken other species. Decades to develop. We've got good news and bad news, General, Ben said. The good news is their plasma weapons are actually pretty simple once you understand the power flow. We can build copies using modified fusion reactors. And the bad news? Their computer systems are completely different from ours. But that might not matter. I think we can make something better. Patricia raised an eyebrow. Better than alien. Technology? Ben grinned. See, they design everything to be safe and predictable. All their systems have multiple backup safeguards to prevent accidents. But those same safeguards make their weapons slower and less powerful than they could be. He pulled up a diagram on his tablet. Human engineering philosophy is different. We build things to work at maximum efficiency, even if it's more dangerous. A human-built plasma cannon using their technology, but our design principles could be twice as powerful. How long? Patricia asked. Give me 2 weeks in a factory. We'll have weapons that will make the Zephyrians think twice about attacking us. Across the room, Captain Kevin Brooks was planning something that would have horrified the Coalition observers. He stood before a holographic map showing Zephyrian supply lines, his eyes tracking the movement patterns of enemy convoys. Zephyrians follow very predictable routes, reported Lieutenant Amy Foster, his tactical officer. They use the same hyperspace lanes every time, always traveling in formation. It's always stopping at the same refueling stations. Kevin studied the patterns. It reminded him of something from his childhood on the farming worlds, watching herds of cattle move along the same paths every day. Predictable, vulnerable. They're not warriors, he said quietly. They're just bullies who got used to picking on weaker species, but they don't know how to handle a real fight. He turned to his staff. We're going to hit their supply convoys. Not with big fleets, but with small, fast ships. Hit-and-run attacks. Never stay in one place long enough for them to organize a response. Sir, that's very risky, said Commander Tony Martinez, his second-in-command. If we get caught, those small ships won't survive. Against their battle cruisers? Kevin smiled, the same kind of smile that had made Admiral Valdris uncomfortable. Tony, my grandfather used to hunt wolves back on Terra Nova. You know what he taught me? A pack of wolves doesn't fight fair. They don't line up and face their prey head-on. They circle around. They attack from behind. They run away and attack again. They keep hunting until their prey is too tired to fight back. He pointed at the holographic map. The Zephyrians expect us to fight like they do. Big fleets meeting in open space, formal battles with clear winners and losers, but humans didn't evolve to fight that way. We evolved to hunt. Meanwhile, at a Coalition observation post in neutral space, Ambassador Zelton watched the war unfold. With growing alarm, a tall, graceful being had been assigned to monitor the conflict and report back to the Galactic Council. This is impossible, he said to his aide, a younger Coalition member named Kenthar. The humans should have been defeated weeks ago. Zephyrians have superior technology, larger fleets, more experience. Kenthar studied the latest battle reports. Sir, the humans are using tactics we've never seen before. They're treating every engagement like it's a hunt. They don't try to defeat the enemy in direct combat. Instead, they exhaust them, confuse them, make them afraid. Zelton watched a recording of the latest human attack. A small group of human ships had ambushed a Zephyrian convoy, destroyed half the vessels, then disappeared before reinforcements could arrive. The surviving Zephyrian captains reported that the humans had moved like a coordinated pack. Each ship, knowing exactly what the others would do without any apparent communication. Send this report to the Council immediately, Zelton ordered. The humans are exhibiting behavior patterns we've never encountered in any intelligent species. In human space, Dr. Maya Patel was making discoveries that would change the war entirely. Working in a secret laboratory on Mars, she had been studying captured Zephyrian biotechnology and comparing it to human physiology. Incredible, she muttered. Looking at the latest test results, their enhancement technology is designed for their biology, not ours. But if we modify it for human use, she turned to her research team. Listen carefully. Zephyrian soldiers are stronger and faster than baseline humans, but only because their technology makes up for their natural limitations. They evolved from grazing animals. Their reflexes are designed to detect predators and run away. Dr. Patel pulled up a comparative analysis on her screen, but humans evolved as persistence hunters. Our bodies are already optimized for endurance coordination and rapid decision-making. If we use their enhancement technology on human soldiers, we won't just match their capabilities, we'll exceed them. What are you suggesting? Asked Dr. Carl Ross, her assistant. I'm suggesting we give our Marines upgrades that will make them faster, stronger, and more resilient than anything the galaxy has ever seen. Enhanced human soldiers won't just be superior warriors, they'll be apex predators. The first test of Maya's enhanced soldiers came sooner than expected. Commander Ryan Foster was leading a rescue mission to evacuate human civilians from the contested system of Kepler Prime when his small fleet encountered a Zephyrian battle group. Sir, we're outnumbered 5-1, reported his communications. Officer, recommend we withdraw and call for reinforcements. Ryan looked at his tactical display. At 5 Zephyrian cruisers versus his 2 frigates and 3 escort ships. By any reasonable analysis, he should retreat, Commander Foster had grown up hunting dangerous predators in the wilderness of New Montana. He understood something about warfare that the aliens didn't. No retreat, he said calmly. We're going to use the debris field from that old mining station as cover. Set course for the asteroid belt. Sir, that's suicide, his tactical officer protested. Those asteroids will tear our ships apart if we try to maneuver through them at combat speed. Ryan smiled. Maybe for them, but we're humans. We're used to hunting in dangerous territory. What followed was a battle unlike anything seen in galactic history. Ryan's ships dove into the asteroid field, using the floating rocks as both cover and weapons. It would hide behind large asteroids, then emerge suddenly to fire on the Zephyrian ships before disappearing again. The Zephyrians tried to follow, but their careful, methodical approach was useless in the chaotic environment. They were afraid of damaging their ships on the asteroids, so they moved slowly and predictably. Ryan's forces moved like they were born in the debris field, turning obstacles into advantages. Within an hour, 3 Zephyrian cruisers were destroyed, and the other 2 were retreating. Ryan had lost only 1 escort ship. Even that crew had survived by using the lifeboats in a way the aliens had never seen before, turning them into improvised missiles. The coalition observers who witnessed the battle sent emergency reports back to their government. The humans weren't just winning through luck or desperation. They were demonstrating a completely different understanding of warfare itself. Ambassador Zelton filed his final report that evening. The humans do not fight wars, they hunt them. This changes everything we thought we knew about intelligent behavior. Back on Earth, General Wells received the battle reports with grim satisfaction. The war was far from over, but humanity was no longer just defending itself. They were becoming something the galaxy had never seen before, a species that treated interstellar warfare as just another form of hunting, and they were very, very good at it. Dr. Amy Turner had been studying alien biology for 6 months when she made the discovery that would change everything. In her laboratory on Luna Station, she compared genetic samples from 12 different species that had been collected during during the war. What she found made her hands shake as she typed her report. This can't be right, she whispered, running the analysis for the 3rd time. But the results were always the same. She picked up her communication device and called Earth Command. General Wells. This is Dr. Turner. I need to speak with you immediately. It's about the aliens. 2 hours later, Amy stood before the Joint Chiefs of Staff in the secure briefing room. Her presentation was simple, but its implications were staggering. Every alien species we've encountered evolved from prey animals, she said, pointing to the genetic charts on the main screen. Dichothani from the Coalition. Their ancestors were small creatures that ate fruit and hid from predators. The Zephyrians. They came from herd animals that lived in open grasslands. General Wells leaned forward. What exactly are you saying, Doctor? Amy took a deep breath. I'm saying that humans are the only apex predator species in known space. We're the only intelligent life that evolved from hunters instead of the hunted. The room fell silent. Admiral Janet Cooper, the head of naval operations, was the first to speak. That would explain a lot about their behavior in combat. They retreat when we advance. They panic when we use unpredictable tactics. It's more than that, Amy continued. Look at their ship designs, their military doctrine, their social structures. Everything about their civilization is built around avoiding conflict, not winning it. They've had peace for 3,000 years, not because they're more advanced than us, but because none of them understand warfare at a genetic level. General Marcus Stone, the commander of Marine Operations, studied the data carefully. Dr. Turner, are you telling us that we have a biological advantage in combat? I'm telling you that every human instinct that helped our ancestors hunt mammoth and saber-toothed tigers also makes us superior warriors in space. We think like predators because we are predators. The implications of Amy's discovery became clear during the Battle of Kepler Station 3 days later. The Zephyrians had assembled their largest fleet yet, over 200 ships for what they called their final offensive against humanity. Admiral Victoria Kane commanded the human defense with only 60 ships. But she had something the aliens didn't understand. She had the mind of a hunter. Ma'am, enemy fleet is approaching in standard formation, reported her tactical officer, Lieutenant Bob Harris. They're maintaining tight defensive spacing, advancing slowly. Victoria studied the tactical display. The Zephyrian fleet looked impressive, moving in perfect geometric patterns like a parade formation. But to her hunter's eye, it looked like something else entirely. They're moving like a herd, she said quietly. All bunched together, following the same path, depending on group protection. She turned to her communications officer. Signal all ships. Going to show these herbivores what happens when they meet real predators. The human fleet scattered like hunting wolves, each ship group taking a different approach to the enemy formation. Victoria's flagship, the UES Defiance, led a direct assault on the center, while smaller squadrons attacked from multiple angles. Zephyrians responded exactly as Victoria expected. Instead of breaking formation to meet the threats, they contracted into an even tighter defensive cluster. It was the same instinct that had kept their ancestors alive on ancient grasslands, but in space combat, it made them vulnerable. All ships initiate ramming protocol, Victoria ordered. What followed horrified the Zephyrian commanders. Human ships deliberately crashed into enemy vessels, their crews evacuating at the last second in specially designed escape pods. The pods themselves had been weaponized, carrying small fusion charges that detonated after the crews were clear. Admiral Sektar of the Zephyrian fleet watched in disbelief as his formation crumbled under the suicide attacks. They're destroying their own ships to damage ours. What kind of species does this? His aide, Commander Velkin, studied the tactical reports with growing panic. Sir, they're not following any known rules of engagement. Then attack again from a different direction. There's no pattern to their movements. There has to be a pattern, Sektar insisted. All intelligent warfare follows logical principles. But there was a pattern, one that no prey species could understand. The humans were hunting. Captain Tony Martinez led the boarding action against the Zephyrian flagship. His enhanced Marines moved through the alien ship like ghosts, their augmented bodies, allowing them to navigate the foreign corridors with deadly efficiency. The Zephyrian crew had barricaded themselves in their control rooms. But the barriers that might stop other aliens were useless against humans. Martinez's team cut through bulkheads, crawled through ventilation systems, and used explosive charges to breach sealed doors. They're everywhere, reported a terrified Zephyrian officer. Over their communication system. They move in the dark. They attack from behind. They won't stop coming. What the Zephyrians didn't understand was that humans had evolved to hunt in exactly this way. Their ancestors had tracked prey through dense forests, coordinating attacks. Without verbal communication, using every advantage the environment provided, when Martinez reached the bridge, he found the Zephyrian command crew huddled together in the center of the room. They weren't fighting anymore. They were exhibiting the same freeze response that their herbivore ancestors had used when cornered by predators. "We surrender, Admiral," Sektar said, his voice barely a whisper. "Please don't kill us." Martinez looked at the alien commander with genuine confusion. "Kill you? We're not here to kill anyone. We're here to capture your ship." But the damage was already done. Word of the boarding action spread through the Zephyrian fleet like wildfire. Crew after crew abandoned their ships rather than face human. Marines in close combat. The alien soldiers couldn't fight the deep. Genetic fear that human presence triggered in their minds. Dr. Chenwei analyzed the battle footage later and made another disturbing discovery. The human Marines hadn't just defeated the aliens through superior tactics. They had unconsciously used body language, vocal patterns, and movement techniques that triggered primal fear responses in prey species. "It's involuntary," she explained to General Wells. "When humans move in coordinated groups, when they advance steadily toward a target, when they make certain sounds, they're displaying classic predator behavior. The aliens can't help but react like frightened animals." The war ended not with a negotiated peace, but with complete Zephyrian collapse. Within days of the Battle of Kepler Station, entire sectors of the Zephyrian Empire declared independence. Rather than continue fighting humans, the Empire's client species, most of them also descended from prey animals, simply couldn't overcome their instinctive terror. Admiral Valdris, the same commander who had been so confident during the attack. New Austin sent a final message to Earth before his government officially surrendered. "We underestimated you," he said simply. "We thought intelligence meant the abandonment of primitive instincts. We were wrong. You have shown us that the greatest predators are those who learn to think." In the Coalition observation post, Ambassador Zelton filed his final report. On the human-Zephyrian War, his hands trembled as he dictated the words that would change galactic politics forever. "The humans have revealed a fundamental flaw in our understanding of intelligence and civilization. We assumed that sapience meant the evolution away from predatory behavior. The humans prove that the opposite may be true. They have retained their apex predator instincts while developing advanced technology and social cooperation." He paused, thinking about the implications. For 3,000 years, galactic civilization has been peaceful because all member species were descended from prey animals. We avoided conflict because conflict was antithetical to our nature. But now we face a species for whom conflict is not only natural, but necessary for survival. The ambassador's final words would echo through Coalition space for generations. The humans don't just wage war. They are war. And now they are loose in our galaxy. Back on Earth, President Robert Hayes signed the formal acceptance of Zephyrian surrender. But as he put down his pen, he knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy now knew what humanity truly was. That knowledge would change everything the prey species of the galaxy had. Just learned that their peaceful universe had a new apex predator. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so silent. Representatives from 12 different species sat around the massive circular table, their various forms of communication creating a strange symphony of clicks, whistles, and musical tones. But today, no one was speaking. Ambassador Susan Clark stood at the center of the chamber, the first human ever to address the Galactic Council. She was a tall woman with graying hair and steady eyes that had seen too much war in recent months. Around her, alien eyes watched with a mixture of fear, curiosity, and respect. "Honored representatives," Susan began, her voice calm and clear. "6 months ago, your coalition offered humanity protection. Today, I stand before you to offer our protection to you." A ripple of movement went through the chamber. Ambassador Zelton of the Kelthani leaned forward. "Ambassador Clark, the war with the Zephyrians is over. Why do we need protection?" Susan activated a holographic display, showing the outer regions of the galaxy. "Because the Zephyrians were not the only threat out there. Our deep space scouts have detected at least 3 other hostile forces beyond Coalition space. Forces that have been waiting for the right moment to attack." The hologram showed massive fleets of unknown ships, their designs unlike anything in Coalition databases. Susan continued, "These species have been watching the galaxy for centuries, waiting for a sign of weakness. The Zephyrian War gave them that sign." Chancellor Vorth of the Threnody species spoke with his water-filtered voice. "What makes you think these forces are hostile?" "Because they've already started moving," Susan replied grimly. "Our long-range sensors show 3 separate invasion fleets heading toward Coalition space. They'll arrive within 18 months. The chamber erupted in panicked communication. Representatives spoke rapidly to their aides, consulting data tablets and emergency protocols. Susan waited for the noise to die down before continuing. "Coalition faces the same problem it had with the Zephyrians, but worse. Your military doctrine is designed for peacekeeping, not warfare. Your weapons are built for defense, not attack. Your soldiers are trained to avoid conflict, not win it." She paused, looking around the chamber. "But humanity has spent the last year learning something you've forgotten for 3,000 years. We've learned how to hunt enemies that don't want to be caught?" Admiral Yexmil of the Coalition Defense Force spoke up. "What exactly are you proposing?" "New treaty," Susan said simply. "Humanity becomes the military protector of Coalition space. We handle the threats that your peaceful nature cannot address. In return, the Coalition provides resources, technology, and logistical support. And if we refuse?" asked Ambassador Keldon of the Quillen. Susan's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes reminded the aliens of the predator that lurked behind human civility. "Then you face the coming invasion alone. Based on what we've learned about your military capabilities, you won't survive it." 3 days later, General Andrew Parker stood on the bridge of the newly commissioned Hughes Guardian, humanity's first joint coalition vessel. The ship was a hybrid of human and alien technology, combining coalition energy systems with human tactical doctrine. "General, we're receiving a distress signal from the Altair system," reported Lieutenant Colonel Jane Murphy, his communications officer. "Coalition forces are under attack by an unknown fleet." Andrew studied the tactical display. The Altair system was on the edge of Coalition space, exactly where the scouts had predicted the first invasion would begin. "Time to see if this partnership actually works." "Set course for Altair, maximum speed." The Guardian arrived at Altair to find a battle already in progress. The attacking fleet consisted of ships unlike anything in galactic databases. They were black, angular vessels that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. They moved with mechanical precision, showing no mercy to the Coalition defenders. "My God," whispered Commander Lisa Wong, Andrew's tactical officer. "They're slaughtering the Coalition ships." Andrew watched as Coalition vessels tried to retreat in orderly formations while the alien attackers pursued them relentlessly. The Coalition captains were following standard peacekeeping protocols, trying to minimize casualties and avoid unnecessary destruction. Their attackers had no such concerns. "Signal the Coalition fleet," Andrew ordered. "Tell them to fall back and let us handle this." "Sir, there are over 50 enemy ships," reported his sensor officer. "We only have 12 vessels." Andrew smiled the predator smile that had become humanity's signature in the galaxy. "Then it's almost a fair fight." The human fleet moved like a pack of wolves, each ship taking a different approach to the enemy formation. They used no standard tactics, followed no predictable patterns. Instead, they hunted. Captain Nancy Davis commanded the escort ship Wolverine. Diving through the enemy formation and targeting their command vessels, her ship took heavy damage, but she kept fighting until her weapons were destroyed and her engines were failing. "Wolverine to Guardian," she reported calmly. "I'm dead in space, but I've got a clear shot at their flagship, requesting permission." "To ram." "Permission denied, Nancy," Andrew replied. "Eject your crew and use the ship as a guided missile." What followed became known as the Battle of Altair. The first time humanity fought as protectors of the galaxy rather than defenders of their own territory. The black ships fought with mechanical efficiency. They had never encountered human unpredictability. Commander Beth Taylor used her frigate like a battering ram, smashing through enemy formations. Captain Joe Martinez turned his damaged ship into a bomb, detonating it in the middle of the enemy fleet. Marine Colonel Frank Roberts led boarding parties that captured 3 enemy vessels intact. Within 4 hours, invading fleet was destroyed or scattered. The coalition forces watched in amazement as humanity achieved what their own military considered impossible. Admiral Clark to General Parker came a transmission from the coalition flagship. "How did you accomplish this?" "Our tactical computers say you should have been destroyed." Andrew looked out at the debris field that had once been an invasion fleet. "Admiral, your computers assume that intelligent beings will act rationally and preserve their own lives. Humans don't always act rationally when we're hunting." The victory at Altair was just the beginning. Over the next year, human forces fought 3 more invasion attempts, each time using tactics that horrified and amazed their coalition allies. They turned cargo ships into weapons, used damaged vessels as guided missiles, fought boarding actions with a ferocity that made enemy soldiers surrender rather than face them in close combat. Dr. Paul Jackson published his final analysis of humanity's role in galactic politics from his office on Mars. His report would become required reading at every coalition military academy. "Humanity's integration into galactic civilization represents a fundamental shift in the balance of power," he wrote. "For 3 millennia, the galaxy has been peaceful because all intelligent species evolved from prey animals. They avoided conflict because conflict was antithetical to their nature." He paused in his dictation, looking out at the red Martian, a landscape where human colonies now thrived under alien protection agreements, but humanity evolved from apex predators. "We don't avoid conflict, we master it. We don't fear the hunt, we are the hunt. This makes us uniquely qualified to protect species that cannot protect themselves, but it also makes us dangerous if we choose to be." 5 years after the end of the Zephyrian War, Admiral Lisa Wong stood on the bridge of the UES Protector, flagship of the Human Defense Corps. Her crew included former Zephyrian officers who had overcome their instinctive fear through gradual exposure therapy. "Admiral, we're approaching the Vega system," reported her navigation officer, Lieutenant Sam Williams. "Coalition intelligence says there might be hostile activity in this sector," Lisa nodded. The Human Defense Corps had become the galaxy's police force, responding to threats that other species couldn't handle. It was a responsibility that weighed heavily on every human officer. "Remember," she said to her mixed crew of humans and aliens, "we're not conquerors, we're guardians. The galaxy depends on us to be better than our instincts." As the Protector moved deeper into space, Lisa reflected on humanity's strange journey. They had started as unknown primitives, become feared predators, and finally accepted their role as protectors of civilizations that would always see them as both saviors and threats. The galaxy was vast and full of dangers that peaceful species couldn't imagine. But now it had guardians who understood that sometimes, to preserve peace, you needed to be very good at war. Humanity had found its place among the stars, not as conquerors, but as the apex predators who chose to hunt only those who threatened the innocent.